Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Ryan Guest, here with Election Predictions Official. In today's video, we are going to take a look at Morning Consult's brand new polling average, which they just released on Tuesday, December 5th. Similar to how they have been tracking the Republican primary for quite some time now, they have now released a full site dedicated to tracking the race between incumbent Democrat Joseph R. Biden Jr. and the current strong frontrunner for the Republican nomination, former President Donald J. Trump. Now here's what they have written as their description for this site. Ahead of the 2024 presidential election, Morning Consult is conducting thousands of surveys every day, asking registered U.S. voters whom they plan to vote for in 2024's likely rematch between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, as well as how they view these candidates and other top political figures. Our ongoing candidate tracking is complemented by daily tracking of the issues voters consider most important when making their decisions at the ballot box, whom they trust to handle those issues, and the extent to which media coverage of those issues is reaching them. Their top-line results here show a dead heat between Biden and Trump, with each candidate receiving 43% of support among a representative sample of 5,800 registered voters, with an unweighted margin of error of plus-minus 1 percentage point. This survey was conducted between December 1st and 3rd. Now, to be clear, this question and most others like it that you see on Real Clear Politics, 538, or wherever you see polls and polling averages, ask voters this specific question. If the 2024 U.S. presidential election were held in your state, whom would you vote for? With this context in mind, horse race polls like these should only really be assessed as moments in time, with their actual predictive power for what will happen 10 months from now being relatively limited. What these polls do best for us is give us an indication of the sentiment of voters over time, and therefore we can make deductions based on shifts and trends in these polls and the data behind them to give us clues as to what the national environment will look like in November of 2024. Now, as you would expect in our current political environment, these top-line numbers are heavily polarized when looking down at the partisan vote share. 85% of Democrats and 83% of Biden 2020 voters currently back Biden over Trump, while 87% of Republicans and 88% of Trump 2020 voters back Trump over Biden. That's not surprising, and we would expect those numbers to remain relatively static throughout this cycle. Partisanship has become by far the most telling factor in who somebody will vote for, as record high numbers of Democrats and Republicans hold deeply negative views of the opposite party. And given that Trump versus Biden is a rematch of the 2020 election, you would be hard-pressed to find very many people out there on either side who have not already made up their mind on either of these two candidates. On that note, the number that is worth looking at here is independent voters who backed Biden by a substantial margin in 2020, according to various exit polls and surveys conducted around the time of the election. In this poll, though, Trump currently holds a 3-point advantage at the moment, which is the primary reason why the top-line share is even as compared to Biden's 4.5-point national popular vote victory in 2020. Remember, Biden was polling more than 7 points ahead of Trump headed into Election Day, according to both 538 and Real Clear Politics' polling averages. Now, in the grand scheme of things, the fact that Trump is polling so well here, relatively speaking, should not come as a surprise. President Joe Biden is historically unpopular, and Trump has been polling even with, if not ahead of Biden, by a couple of points in most surveys over the last 2 months. The number that does come as a surprise, at least to me, is that 20% of independents said that they would vote for someone not named Trump or Biden if the election were held in their state today. Overall, 10% of voters across each group said that they would back somebody else, with 4% undecided, which is actually noticeably low. Usually this far out from an election day, you tend to see a much higher number of undecided voters. Though as this is a rematch of an election held just a few years ago, it does make sense why so few people say they still do not know who they will vote for. So maybe neither number should come as a surprise, as when you take a look at Trump and Biden's favorability ratings among non-partisans, it starts to make a lot more sense. I've already mentioned how Biden is historically unpopular. His approval rating, according to 538, hit the lowest mark of his entire presidency on Wednesday, December 6th at 37.7%. That's lower than every other president in the modern era at this point in their first term, going all the way back to Harry Truman. And for reference, Trump's approval rating on his 1,051st day in office was 42%. Not great, but still over 4 points higher than Biden's is today. And on that note, Trump's candidate favorability rating, interestingly enough, is 42.5% as of December 6th, also according to 538, which does actually track right around where his approval rating hovered around for most of the second half of his presidency, before it of course tanked in the aftermath of January 6th. That said, while Trump is a couple of points more favorable than Biden today, he is still 10 points underwater, and his favorability rating among independents has consistently polled below 40%, according to YouGov. Ultimately, the executive summary here is that there is considerable appetite among independents, as well as some Democrats and Republicans, to vote third party come November of 2024. Currently headlining the options is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., now running as an independent after first challenging Biden in the Democratic primary. According to RCP's polling average, Kennedy is polling at 13.6% nationally, in an average of the last 5 polls that included third-party candidates. Kennedy's platform is unique, to say the least, holding a diverse mix of traditionally liberal, conservative, and libertarian views. In addition to his conspiracy theories, Kennedy has received significant support from independents, young voters, and those with low trust in mainstream American politics and institutions. His early polling numbers are the highest we have seen from a third-party candidate in a very long time. Other notable third-party candidates include independent Cornel West and the likely Green Party nominee Jill Stein, who finished 4th in the 2016 presidential election, receiving 1.1% of the national popular vote. She famously took enough votes away from Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan to help Donald Trump win the states, and thereby receive enough electoral votes to be elected president. Had voters in those states cast their ballots for Clinton rather than Stein, Hillary would be president. With that in mind, there has been a lot of discussion regarding Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s strong polling numbers and which candidate, Trump or Biden, stands to lose more voters as a result. Initial data suggests that the effect is mixed, with some analyses suggesting that RFK Jr. does take more support from Trump than Biden, while others indicate the split is relatively even. Morning Consult's latest swing state polls found the latter, with RFK Jr.'s candidacy hurting the 2 major party candidates equally. According to them, in combined data from all of the swing states, 8% of voters who backed Biden in a 2-way contest against Trump said that they would support Kennedy in a multi-candidate ballot. This is similar to the 7% of Trump's head-to-head supporters who would also back the anti-vaccine activist if given the option. While Trump's campaign has already sought to undercut Kennedy's independent bid, he is still more liked among Republicans than Democrats. This gives Biden's campaign a potential opportunity to turn Kennedy's candidacy against Trump by playing up his fringe views that are popular in some right-wing quarters. How successful the incumbent's campaign is in that regard could play a larger role in the outcome of the election than most people seem to be giving it credit for, as going back to their 2024 presidential election tracker, those 14% of somebody else or undecided voters will in all likelihood be the group that determines which candidate receives 270 electoral votes. And as I've said on this channel countless times before, Biden and the Democratic Party have a tougher hill to climb than Trump and Republicans, as the growing pro-Republican bias of the Electoral College means that they will likely need to win the popular vote by at least 3% to have a chance at 270 electoral votes. Remember, in 2016, Trump won the Electoral College despite losing to Clinton in the national popular vote by 2.1% nationally. And he then came within 80,000 votes in just 4 battleground states of defeating Biden in 2020, despite once again losing the popular vote, this time by 4.5%. Now, obviously, 43% will not be enough for Biden, so his campaign will need to make sure that RFK Jr. does indeed pull more support from Trump. Meanwhile, history also suggests that a good chunk of these 14% of voters will ultimately end up backing Trump or Biden when they fill out their ballot on Election Day. While early data does suggest that third-party candidates could draw more of the vote away from Democrats and Republicans than they have since at least 1996, my own intuition is that it won't amount to more than 10% of the vote when all is said and done, as both campaigns will probably spend obscene amounts of money trying to convince their bases that a vote for anybody but themselves is a wasted vote, as the likelihood of a third-party candidate somehow winning enough states to be elected president in our current climate and system is below zero. Alrighty, to wrap things up, let's take a quick look at the rest of the data on this page. Here you see a tracker of this poll over time. You can see Biden was polling a couple points ahead of Trump for most of 2023 until these past 2 months. Morning Consult has also been assessing candidates' favorability ratings. These are both actually more favorable to the two major party candidates than most other sites, at least. Biden is slightly less popular than Trump here, with a net -8 rating compared to Trump's net -6 rating. And finally, top issues in the election. No surprise, the economy tops the list, as it always does. Rounding out the top 5 are national security, Social Security and Medicare, healthcare, and then crime. That will be all though for today's video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel down below, and feel free to like the video while you're down there as well. Make sure to check out electionpredictionsofficial.com for my 2024 presidential forecast. You can check out more content from my channel here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.